Power at our Educational Community Civic Series. You know, the reason that we do these Educational Community Series, Civic Series, is because of the importance of our local offices, and you know, make sure that our community is involved as much as possible with the who, what, where, and why. So again, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And if you don't have any questions, I know it's early, and I know you have, you know, I know your schedule. So I want to, first of all, thank you for rearranging your schedule with ours to, you know, to accommodate us this morning. So for that, again, thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, George, do you mind telling us, share with us, who are you?
Sure. So my name is George Heym. I live in the city of Pittsburgh, grew up in the city of Pittsburgh. I am somebody who's kind of intimately connected with the courts of Allegheny County. I am a product of the Allegheny County Common Pleas Court system. When I was 11 years old, I was the subject of a nasty, very public, very drawn out custody battle. And the judge in that case, according to the law at the time, should have reached a particular decision. And he didn't do that. He basically decided to change the way that that law was interpreted in Pennsylvania. And he did what he felt was in my best interest. That's now the standard. But that case, which bears my name, is still cited to this day, almost 40 years later. So it's an interesting story in that I, as an 11-year-old, I was in front of a judge. Had he not done what he did, I wouldn't be here talking to you. You know, I don't know where I'd be. I know I wouldn't be running for judge. I'd probably be in a cell. I mean, honestly, that's how bad the alternative was. So, you know, that really taught me what it means to be caught up in the system, what it means to be powerless over your own fate. And more importantly, it taught me just how important every decision a judge makes is, because it can change somebody's life. No matter how small, it can change somebody's life. And it changed mine. That's the reason I became an attorney. I worked construction for 10 years to pay my way through college and law school. I worked full-time while I was in law school at the University of Pittsburgh. I became a prosecutor. I worked for the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office for about 7 years, prosecuting child abuse cases and homicide cases. My goal was to be a child abuse prosecutor. I wanted to give back. I then opened my own law firm, and I've been doing criminal defense work for about 15 years now.
Wow, wow. Now, can you educate us on? Now I'm gonna get into your story, because I did read about the judge and your personal journey with that situation. I want you to share a little bit about that law, but not right now. I want to, because what I was reading was you did a lot of DUI. You did a lot of DUI cases. You did a lot of child abuse cases. You did a lot of orphan courts. So if you can share with us, how will you take that passion or that knowledge and information and address and you know, apply it to the Court of Common Pleas judicial seat?
Sure. So that's a deep question, because you know, a lot of people talk about the criminal justice system being broken. And I'm here to tell you, it's not broken. It's working exactly the way it was designed to work. It was designed to work to disenfranchise people, particularly people of color, LGBTQ, and those who don't have money. And that's the bottom line. So our system is set up in a way, you know, people say, I want to be a fair and compassionate judge. Well, that's nice, and they probably mean well. The problem is, if you're being fair and objective, but you're working on top of a system that is anything but fair and objective, you're going to continue to have the same kind of results. And that's what we have. And I'm going to give you a perfect example, you know, that I use to talk about systemic racism. It's built into our system, and that's representative juries, right? The Constitution gives people a right to be tried by a jury of their peers. And particularly for people of color, that means they should have the opportunity, if their life or their liberty are on the line, to have a jury that has representatives of their community. In Allegheny County, that almost never happens. I will tell you, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've done over 100 jury trials, both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. And people assume it's because prosecutors are striking people of color. Right? And that happens, don't get me wrong, and it's a problem, but it's not the problem. The problem is the way in which we choose juries in the first place. When you go to choose a jury in Allegheny County, you go into a room called the jury room, and there's a pool of potential jurors, generally 35, maybe 40 people. The 100 or more times that I've gone into that room to choose a jury, I can count on one hand the number of times I saw more than 2, maybe 3 people of color in that whole jury pool. Right? So what that means is the deck is stacked.
Yeah.
How can you possibly, having to choose from that large group of people, actually end up with enough representative people from your community on that jury? Right? That's a systemic problem. That's not somebody's being a racist. That's the system is racist. And yet judges have done nothing to remedy that. I mean, this is a well-known problem. It's been happening, since we've had the criminal justice system. Judges need to, and this is what I would bring, having dealt with this and having been in the position where I was at the mercy of the court, is I would put my foot down as a judge and say, no, this won't stand. Get rid of that pool, bring in another one. Keep doing it. Now, here's the problem. They choose those potential jurors from the voter rolls. That's the way it's set up. That in and of itself is a problem. Think about it. I mean, all of the ways in which the power structure has systemically suppressed people of color in the United States for all of our history. Generational wealth, the big one, voter suppression, right? So suppressing the black vote has all of these consequences that kind of ripple out. And the big one is this jury selection, right? Because the black communities are underrepresented on the voter rolls, and that's by design. And then even within that, we have no idea how they're pulling these panels from within the voter rolls, right? Are they choosing certain geographical areas? Hey, guess what? If you keep pulling your juries from Mount Lebanon, you're going to have a jury that looks a certain way. Right. And I don't even have that information. But as a judge, I would demand that information. Right. People ask me sometimes, well, how do we fix this problem? And my answer sometimes is simple. We just do it. Right now, I say one judge can make a difference in their courtroom. We have a huge opportunity in this election cycle. This is why what you're doing is so important. You're educating people as people don't think about judge races. Oh, I recognize that name, or the Democratic Party endorsed this person. That's not what's important. We've got 9 open seats. That's almost a quarter of the seats on the bench. If we elect enough like-minded judges that are progressive, that have experience, that understand these issues, and have the will to fight the system to change them, those judges can work as a group to try to force systemic change. That's what I'm after. I want to see a group of us go in there. I don't want to fix the system. I want to break the system down and rebuild it so it's fair for everybody. Why should people be forced into the streets to get justice that is guaranteed them by the Constitution?
Now I want to, because this question, we ask this question all the time. What could a judge do about someone picking a jury of their peers? So I'm glad that and I'm hoping that our listeners, caught what you were saying, and also, about the suppression of the Black, brown, and poor vote. Because like we like to say here at Western Power, if our vote wasn't so powerful, they would not be trying to suppress it. Okay,
right? Of course.
I'm glad you also tied it in with it. All comes together with our picking a jury of your peers. It all comes together of picking the elected officials that we choose to pick. That's going to, the like-minded who have views like ourselves. It all comes in together. But I want you, if you can you touch more on? You touched the base a little bit on the systemic racism, and how, you had stated that systemic racism, how people, when they hear that, they automatically think that we are saying they are racist. And systemic racism is the system. And can you stated that, can you, go into that a little bit more for us?
Sure, that's one of the big problems is that, of course, you do run into racists in the system, right? We had recently a judge that was forced to resign
Mhm,
who made blatantly racist comments.
mhm,
But, that is something that you can see.
mhm,
That's something you can fight. That's something you can address. Recognize those, systemic racism. You can have a judge who's perfectly fair, even a judge who's of color,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Who is sensitive to the cultural background, the special needs of their particular community.
mhm,
They're working in a system where all of the mechanisms and procedures that lead to decisions are
mhm.
set up in a way to keep those decisions from being fair. That the jury, the way we pick juries is a great example. And there are some of them that I don't even recognize because they're so insidious. They're kind of like under the surface, and
Mhm,
that's
mhm,
part of the problem is that judges take the bench and they think all I have to do is be fair, and the law will take care of the rest.
mhm, mhm,
But
mhm.
if the law isn't fair and the system isn't fair, it doesn't matter if the judge is fair. And of course, that's why the system was designed that way.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, that what you just said right there is game changing because right now we have an 25% of the system. Okay, we have a chance right now to choose like-minded individuals who is not comfortable with our system. We may have conversations 365 days a year how our system is not broken, like you said, is working exactly the way that it was designed. But I'm hoping that our listeners is hearing that where we are right now and what a chance we have to make a difference in this system that we have right now. So
It's literally a once in a generation, maybe once,
yeah.
longer than that chance. We're never going to see 9 open seats
Mm-hmm,
on
mm-hmm,
the trial court level in Allegheny County again. I mean, I
mm-hmm,
guess it could happen. It's just none of us expected this, frankly.
mm-hmm,
That's why there's so many people running.
mm-hmm.
There's lots of people running for judge because they want to be a judge. And there's
Yeah,
9 open seats, so I got a chance.
yeah.
There's a very small core of people that are, call us progressive, call us activists. I call us truth seekers and justice seekers because that's what we want. We want this system to work for everybody. And
Yeah.
there's so many other ways in which our system destroys people and communities. One of the biggest problems we have in this county is probation length.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We have one of the highest rates or lengths in the United States. So think about it. That's taking Texas into account, right?
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
of long probationary periods for
Mm-hmm,
non-violent offenses.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
you have somebody who has a minor drug offense, a retail theft, getting put on probation for 3 years.
Mhm,
Now, the
mhm,
thinking in the system, and again, this is because people don't examine why they're doing things, is well, if we put them under court supervision for a longer time, they won't reoffend. In the system, they call that putting a long tail on somebody, right? You
mhm,
give them a
mhm.
long probation tail. Well, I've been doing this for over 2 decades, and the exact opposite is true. Because
Exactly.
what you do when you put somebody on a probation like that is you set them up for failure,
Mhm,
right? You don't
mhm,
support them. You don't set them up for success. You
mhm.
set them up for failure because what does it take? A missed supervision fee of
Yeah,
$90.
yeah.
You're back in a jail cell.
Mhm,
A positive marijuana test.
mhm,
You're
mhm,
back in a jail cell. A negative interaction with the police officer, and I
mhm.
don't mean getting arrested or committing a crime. I mean
Yeah,
where the police officer says you did something
yeah,
and
yeah.
you're back in a cell. You lose your job. You lose your home. Your court costs go up. Now these court costs that are following people around for the rest of their lives are just increasing. And
Yeah,
then what does the judge do? The judge says, well, you violated my probation, so I'm going to extend the probation. I'm going
yeah,
to set you up for more failure.
yeah.
And round we go, and it never stops.
Mhm.
Again, this is something where how do we fix this problem? We fix it. We just stop doing it. Right? We
Yeah,
need
yeah.
judges to say there's no reason to put somebody on a 3-year probation for retail theft. I mean, a lot of the candidates talk about statistics and numbers, and I do as well.
Mhm,
But To me, these are not numbers and statistics. These are names and faces, right? I'm a criminal defense attorney. I deal with this every day. I'm in court every day. And excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, you're all right. You're fine.
I had a client recently who was on probation for a retail theft. 50-year-old woman, didn't have an extensive criminal history, was within 1 month of her probation being over, and she had paid all her costs. She had done all her classes. She got a first offense driving under the influence DUI charge.
Yeah.
Right. What happened to her? The judge violated her original probation.
Yeah.
She sat in jail for 6 months
Yeah.
during a pandemic when
Yeah.
she was the sole caregiver for her senior mother.
Yeah.
6 months. Here's what's most offensive about this story. Had she been able to plead guilty to that DUI on day one, you know how much time she would have got? 3 days. Probably would have served it like in the DUI hotel or something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't her fault that our system is so backed up that it took 6 months to get her to the point where all she wanted to do was plead guilty and get out, go home to her family. She couldn't. 6 months. Both nonviolent offenses, no accident, nobody injured. I think the original offense, she stole a pack of batteries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why was she even, why was she on that original probation? And listen, there are judges in this county who pre-sign arrest warrants. They put their signature on them and they give them to probation officers. They allow the probation officer to make the initial determination whether they think that person has violated. So the probation officer says, I think you violated. They sign the arrest warrant, they go pick you up, they throw you in a jail cell, and you sit there for a month or more till you can even get in front of the judge to decide whether you really violated the probation in the first place.
Yeah.
That's offensive. You know, as a judge, I would say, listen, probation officers, if you want to throw somebody in jail, you come to me, you explain to me how either they're a high risk for flight risk, like you really have evidence they're going to run, or they're so violent they're a danger to the community. Otherwise, send them a subpoena to appear at a violation hearing later.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that cycle just goes on and on and on. You know, we, instead of getting people help, we warehouse them. Instead of setting them up to succeed, we set them up to fail. Yet people constantly talk about why is the system broken? You know, why do we have these bad outcomes? And that's why what you do is so important, because, you know, I've spoken to voters all over Allegheny County at this point. And one thing is very clear to me is that people, I don't want to be so general. A lot of people do not understand the importance of elections for judges. They're in off election cycles. There's nothing big going on. You know, people don't know what judges do. Maybe they vote for the person whose name they recognize. It only becomes real if it's you or a family member or somebody you know that gets snatched up into the system. Then it's important, but then it's too late. The point is we have this chance now. We have to make the most of that chance. And that's why part of what I do, you know, my campaign motto is fighting for change. I want to change the system, but there's a second meaning to that. The second meaning is I'm fighting to change the narrative. I'm fighting to change the conversation. Every time I talk to people, I say to them, the next time you go to vote for judge, you're going to think the same way you did before. And they almost always say no. Right. I now understand that I need to do my research. I need to not rely on other people to make my decisions for me, because, you know, the people that are getting thrown in jail aren't the only ones affected. Their families are destroyed. Right. You and I are affected. Paying for $100 a day for them to be in the jail. Then when they can't get a job because they lost 3 jobs because they were sitting in jail, we're paying for that too. You know, so I tell people this shouldn't be a progressive, conservative, Democrat, Republican. This is best for everybody. Yet we keep doing the same things.
Wow, George, you really dropped a lot of jewels right there, because I want to comment on a couple of them. You know, like you said, this right now, this opportunity has not been awarded to us since the early 70s. And like you said, we may not never see this again, that we have a chance to you know, look for like-minded individuals. I also want to comment on when you said, you know, the people who is right now running, because there are 9 seats open. I want to make sure that everyone hears when we say, you know, how this right here, these common court pleas judicial seats is going to affect our lives 365 days a year. It's going to affect our communities. It's going to affect our families, you know, and I have to, you know, it reminds me when you were talking, and it literally reminded me of something that a dear friend of mine, Summer Lee, always says. You know, we have to check the people's records. We have to check everyone's record who is running and asking for our votes. You know, this is the time that we have to check, you know, who, the what, the where, and the why. So with that, I want to say thank you so much. And you know, like you said so much, because even when we have to remember, like you said, you know, a lot of people don't see these seats. They don't, you know, look at these seats as extremely important. You know what I'm saying? But that's by design as well. You know, because once someone gets arrested, like you were saying with the PO, you know, we have to remember also the fees and fines that come along with that as well. And we have to make sure that we are looking for and we are voting for our men and women who has the eye on the ball for this, for all of us. You know, when you go to jail, you may be innocent and come home, but you have lost everything. Right. You have lost everything, you know. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much.
I will tell you, something you just said really struck a chord with me. You said that people don't notice or understand how important these elections, judicial elections, are by design. And you could not be closer to the truth. And here's what I'm going to say. Everybody knows it, but nobody has the guts to say it. Mm-hmm. That's on purpose.
Yeah.
Right? In this county, historically, judges are elected when they get the endorsement of the Allegheny County Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? People, okay, here's my slate card. I'm a Democrat. I'm going to vote for them. Well, guess what? The way that the Allegheny County Democratic Party endorses and helps elect judges perpetuates systemic racism. Bam. Mm-hmm. No doubt. Mm-hmm. Nobody will say it, but we all know it. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. If you think about it, the executive director of the Allegheny County Democratic Party, in an article that I read in the newspaper, because this is starting to become an issue now, right? More and more of us are aware of what's going on. And I purposely did not seek the county endorsement. Like, first of all, you have to pay $8,000 just to be considered. Just to be considered, right? I'm not doing that because I think it's corrupt to start with. But her response to that was, and this is the executive director, if you don't pay the endorsement fee, you're not a serious candidate. Everybody knows that it takes a lot of money to be judge. Think about that for a second. How offensive is that? So what you're telling me is only rich folks can be judged, right? And then we wonder, why are we getting certain kind of judges year after year, decade after decade? We need to take that power away. And I'm not attacking individual Democratic committee members across Allegheny County. Most of them are working in the communities trying to do something good. I'm attacking the power structure, nor am I attacking the judicial candidates in this cycle who did choose to seek that endorsement. And I have friends who got the endorsement. Like, they're doing what they have to do or what they believe they have to do to be elected. And I understand that. I hold no ill will towards them. I hold ill will towards the corrupt power structure that continues this cycle of repression, of corruption, of systemic racism. And we need to change that. And the way that we change that is by doing what we're doing, getting that information to the voters so they're not just looking at that slate card, they're doing their research and they're voting for the people that are going to actually fight for change.
Wow. And, you know, and there we have it, you know, and I'm so glad, because this is why we do our educational community civic series. It's about educating ourselves and being unapologetic about the truth. You know, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I want to ask you, listen, we done talked about so many of my questions.
Yeah, once you get me started, it's hard to stop me.
Listen, and thank you so much for that. Because listen, it's time for truth right now. It's, you know what I'm saying? We are not, we have little people coming behind us. And what I mean by that is our grandkids, our kids. It is not no time to sugarcoat and try to step lightly on feelings. You know what I'm saying? This is real. This is real life that is going to affect us from decades to come. Right. Okay, so now you had and I want to say it also. I mean, what you just said about the committee, that ties right in to the systemic racism that we were talking about. Like you said, you're not talking about a person, you're not talking about people that had maybe if you got the endorsement or whatever. It's the system that we have to look at that is not working for Black, brown, and poor individuals in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Allegheny County.
100%.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, and you talked about your personal situation, and you said that it became law, and tell us about that. What's the name of the law?
Sure. Well, the name of the case is In Re Heym. It's IN space REHEYM. That's how they caption cases with minors. They only use the last name. And basically, I mean, the underlying law isn't that important, but it was I was orphaned at an early age, and it was two non-blood relatives fighting over custody of me. And there was a handwritten note from my biological mother favoring one of those parties. And in those days, that would have been the end of it, right? Okay. There's a handwritten signed note that says, this kid should go to this person. So that's what we do. And Judge Zavarella, who's county council person Zavarella's father, he's no longer with us, but he basically said, that doesn't make sense. I don't want to put this kid into that position. And he is the one he wrote this opinion, and the opinion basically says, you can consider that note, but at the end of the day, you have to decide what's in the best interest of a child before you decide a custody issue. That's the standard to this day, right? In that case that he wrote with my name on it, when I was in law school, I would have friends come up and be like, wait, is that you?
Yeah.
That case was affirmed by the Pennsylvania Superior Court, and it was actually cited by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So that's a perfect example of a judge who was willing to think outside the box. So many people get elected, they put on that robe, they think they know everything because they got themselves elected, and they just sit there and they check the boxes, do everything the same. And that's the height of insanity. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result, right? I mean, for me, that was a lifelong lesson learned the hard way, so to speak. And I mean, I came out of poverty. I know what it's like to go to bed at night hungry.
Yeah.
I was, I was the kid with the holes in his car. I was that kid, right? I was the kid that was dragged through CYF and all, anything bad that can happen to a kid, I dealt with it. But this judge, right? So think about it. What happens to kids that come up in that kind of environment so often?
Yeah.
They become people like that. They end up in the system, school to jail, the cycle continues. That judge, by thinking outside the box, put me on a different path.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that for every kid that gets dragged into the system? I don't care if it's family court, juvenile court, criminal court. That should be our goal, not to warehouse people and incarcerate them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, what that judge did is a part of me now, right? Because anybody who gets swept up in the system is changed by it. Luckily for me, I was changed in a good way. I got 3 kids of my own. I got a wife. I'm an attorney. I don't hit my kids. I love my family. These are things that judges can accomplish if they're just willing to think about what they're doing. To think, hey, maybe this law isn't working. Maybe we need to switch it up. Maybe the way we've always done things doesn't work and isn't fair. Let's switch it up. Why don't we have judges? And by the way, let me add, I have close relationships with a lot of judges. I've been doing this for over 20 years. There are people that I started out with that are now judges. And many of those judges were probably endorsed by the Allegheny County Democratic Party. Some of them are very good judges. I don't know that they would go as far as I want to, but they try to be fair. Some even think outside the box on occasion. I don't attack them for having taken that route either. And I will tell you, the county party would say, but look, we endorse these people and they're good judges. This cycle, for the first time in a long time, they endorsed 3 African-American candidates.
Yeah.
Right? It's time. There's no doubt. But first of all, I'm not buying that was for good reasons, right? They're looking for the good press as far as I'm concerned. I have no belief that they're trying to do the right thing. And my point is, we sometimes get good results with judges. But my attitude is it's despite them, not because of them. Yeah, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. It's when the system is set up the way it is, it just can't be fair.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that back up, because I'm hoping that I'm really hoping that our audience, our men and women that are listening, is hearing that it is like you said the very first time. You are not attacking the people of the committee. It is the system, the systemic racism of the system.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like we already said, if we cannot discuss that truth, that's the problem right there.
Right. Well, how can we fix it if we won't even talk about it?
Yeah,
that's why. Listen, and I am well aware that the things that I say are not going to be popular in political power circles. Right? I'm attacking the power structure. I don't care, because as I said, that fighting for change that I talk about, part of that is fighting to change the system before you're even a judge. Give more opportunities to progressive, qualified candidates of color, candidates from the LGBTQ community, the opportunity to get on the bench and bring their story into the courtroom.
And that's what I wanted to say. I also wanted to say, what I'm hearing is that, you took your personal situation and literally is ready to take it to the bench to help others.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because of your personal situation, you can literally look at something and say, this is what this is. And you will be the judge that's reached out and gave you a different path. Because someone gave it to you. And what I'm hearing is you're ready to give it to others.
Right. And I'll tell you right now, if I'm elected and I'm sitting on the bench, there is going to be a picture of Judge Zavarella hanging on the wall behind me. So he's always looking over my shoulder. I never want to forget. Because, you see some people, they put on the robe, they think they've got all the power, they know everything. We're all human. We need those reminders. I mean, you see what happens when ego and racism combine, what happened with Tranquility. Think about that. Right? There's probably other people on the bench that think that way. Not many of them are crazy enough to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Right? And that's something we all need to be aware of. And I don't claim to be some perfect example who has no internal biases. I'm human just like everybody else. Our upbringing, our community, those all affect the way that we view the world. And the key is, as you were saying, we need to talk about these issues, and judges need to listen as much as they talk. That's how you learn. That's how you understand. I talk about the difference between sympathy and empathy. We don't need sympathetic judges. Oh, I'm real sorry about your background, but I'll take a month off your jail time. We need judges that can put themselves in the shoes of that person standing in front of them. That could be my brother, my mother, my cousin, or me. That's when you start to think, okay, how do I do this so that this comes out right? When I say right, I mean justice. The criminal justice system, it's in the name, right? How many people come through that system and just get ground up, but the last thing they're getting is justice? So, we all, when I talk to people, especially people like you that are very well informed about these issues and are educating others, I try to be careful that I don't say I have the answers. Right? I'm not superhuman. I can bring my experience, my knowledge, my will to fight to the game, so to speak. But it's we. We have to work to make changes. And that means that judges need to bring other underserved communities into the conversation, even when they're already on the bench.
Yeah.
You know, why
Yeah.
don't we have mental health workers in the courtroom?
Mm-hmm.
I have a son who's on the autism spectrum. One of my biggest fears is that he comes into contact with the police in a negative way or ends
Mm-hmm.
up in a courtroom. You know, if you threw him in a courtroom with 30 or 40 people packed into it, he would melt down. They would think he was acting up and he'd end up in a jail cell. We need to have those resources available in place so that we can help people. Why are we punishing people for being mentally ill? For being
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
autism spectrum, you know, for having drug abuse disorders,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why are we acting as if they're doing something wrong? That
Yeah.
stigma,
Yeah.
particularly around mental illness, needs to be overcome because a large percentage of the people sitting in the Allegheny County Jail right now suffer from either substance abuse disorder or mental health disorders.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know they're not getting the service they need in the jail,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So why can't we? That's not a huge expense compared to
Mm-hmm.
what we pay to incarcerate somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yet we
Wow.
don't do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have to point out, what is plain right here. And what I'm hoping that everyone here is your how your eye is on the ball of so many issues. Again, I want to go back to what a dear friend of mine always says to me and to us is, we have to do our research. We have to do our research right now. If this is the most important, time of our lives, that we have to do our research. We cannot afford to say this person is nice or that person is always saying hi to me. It's about how are they going to change or impact our judicial seats. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, you're yeah. So I got to skip over a lot of.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely fine. Let's talk about and I know it starts at the magistrate level with our prison to school pipeline. I know it starts at the magistrate and the magistrate, but can you what should our judicial seats be looking for when we're talking about our prison to pipeline youth?
Right. And there's two issues that I think we need to, and they kind of work together because they involve the magistrate judges. So the first is the school to prison pipeline, which starts in the magistrate's office. And the second is cash bail, right? Huge percentage of the prisoners in the county jail right now have not been convicted of the crime for which they're sitting in jail, right? Those initial bonds are set by magistrates. Now that can be appealed, excuse me, to a common pleas court judge, but it takes a month to get a hearing, right? You should be able to get it within 24 hours. So those are two huge issues. And I'm glad you brought it up because it had kind of slipped out of my mind while we're talking about other things. My goal and plan, once I hit the bench with some other like-minded judges, is to create a working group with every magistrate in this county. I've spoken to being on the campaign trail, I've spoken with a bunch of magistrate candidates from around Allegheny County. And sometimes they say to me after we talk, wow, that's a real eye-opener. The number one thing that I say, and I would say as a judge to magistrates, is your job isn't to send people downtown, or when I say downtown, I mean the criminal common pleas court, or to send them to jail. Your job is to act as a gatekeeper for your community, right? You should be weeding out the vast majority of the stuff. That somebody had 30 grams of weed in their pocket or one stamp bag of heroin in their pocket, why are you sending them to criminal court to end up with a misdemeanor conviction?
Yeah.
Let's set up programs. And that's the problem with diversionary programs we have in this county right now, is you have to plead guilty to get the resources.
Yeah.
Mental health, DUI court, drug court.
Yeah.
Why can't we be doing that at the magistrate level before the charges are filed? Right. So now you put somebody in the position where if they do what they need to do, if they accept that help, if they turn their life around, they can turn around and go get a job and move on and become productive members of society. Whereas the way it works now, even if they do everything right, what's the first thing you do when you get clean, get sober? You go out and get a job. Well, sorry, you got a criminal conviction because you needed it to get into that drug court program. So I really think that the common pleas court judges and I've spoken to a bunch of magistrate candidates about this, and they love the idea, should be working with the magistrates, right?
Mhm.
You can't order them to do anything. This needs to be a combined force, so to speak. And we need to elect progressive magistrates as well.
Yeah.
And we could, work on plans to say, listen, if you've got somebody who has one stamp bag of heroin in their pocket, even if they're saying, I won't accept help, I won't go into a diversionary program, and you're going to send their case downtown, there's no reason to set cash bail, right?
Yeah.
Unless cash bail serves two purposes under the law: to enforce the people showing up for court hearings and
Mhm.
to protect society if necessary.
Mhm.
Right. So if
Mhm.
you got somebody who's shooting people up, maybe a magistrate's going to say, I got to put the guy in the cell. He's going to go shoot whatever it is. But if you don't have either of those two things, basically, you are punishing people for being poor.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. So I
Mhm.
think that the Common Pleas Court judges, particularly, and this is what I meant when I said, if we elect enough of the right kind of judges, we can
Mhm.
force systemic change. That's a
Mhm.
perfect example. Getting a group of criminal court judges together and saying,
Mhm.
we're having a meeting. We want every magistrate in
Mhm.
Allegheny County to be at this meeting as well. Here's our agenda: cash bail, pre-charge diversionary programs, which the Common Pleas Court will help set up a program and fund and try to get the DA's office and the PD's office to kick in, and understanding what your role is. Your role is to be a gatekeeper. It's not to be a rubber stamp for the police. And unfortunately, historically, that's what magistrates in this county were. They were rubber stamp. The police put a complaint in front of the judge signs it. No, read that affidavit of probable cause. If you have a question, we will have a hotline set up where you can call and talk to one of the Common Pleas criminal court judges, because many magistrates aren't even attorneys. They're not expected to understand the law at any real depth. They go to magistrate school, they get certified, and they do the job. Give them that opportunity so that a Common Pleas Court judge can say, hey, that's shaky.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't just sign that.
Yeah.
If a defendant exercises their constitutional right to a preliminary hearing, don't just automatically hold those charges for court
Yeah. Yeah.
just because the police said so. No, think about
Mhm.
it. And we have some magistrates that do that, but we don't have enough. And
Yeah.
frankly, I think very often it's because magistrates either don't understand the law or they don't understand their authority
Yeah.
and what their role is supposed to be. Again, they don't work for the police, they work for the community. Be a
Yeah.
gatekeeper, don't be a rubber stamp. And
Wow.
as I said, if we just do it, none of these problems are going to be fixed overnight. If I'm elected, I take the bench, I can immediately stop putting people on those long probations. That's an immediate fix, right? But the long-term fix is to get other judges to do it as well. But some of these systemic issues and educational issues are going to take time. But again, this is the time, because think about it, the judges that we elect in this election are going to be on the bench.
Yeah.
Some of them, I would be on the bench for over 20 years until I have to
Yeah.
retire. 75 is
Yeah.
the mandatory retirement age.
Mhm.
Some of these young kids could be on the bench for 40 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's a long time to force change. It's
Mhm.
also a long time to just keep the same old if you put the wrong people in those seats.
Mhm. Wow, George. So, because here at Western Power, we've been asking the question, what can the community look forward to see as change within a year, 3 years, 5 years? And you literally, gave what? Cash bail, communication with magistrates, to stop these prison to pipeline situations. So I want to make sure that we heard exactly what you said, because that is changes that we can literally see. We are a person can see it, a family can see it, a community can see it. So thank you so much for that. You have been dropping you've been dropping some really, really good information. So I want to say thank you for that. So let me ask you something about yourself that it no one really knows. Maybe your intimate, your family, or your friends, a few of your friends. But tell us something that you're very proud of, but you don't brag about it, and very little people know
There's many things. Some too private, some too personal. But there's one example, and it's something that I probably, as a politician, should have used on the campaign trail, but I feel like it would tarnish what I was involved in. So
Uh-huh.
you may remember that back in June of last year, the courts originally closed due to COVID, then they reopened. It was basically business as usual.
Uh-huh.
People started getting sick. People I knew started getting sick. I
Mhm.
had two friends that were attorneys that caught COVID in the courthouse.
Yeah.
Both ended up in the ICU. One passed away, and one I don't think is back at work yet. So I was enraged by this. You know, it's kind of weird. The county courthouse for me is like a big dysfunctional family, right? I've been spending almost every day in that building for over 20 years. I know the judges, I know the secretaries, I know the staff, I know, you know, the people, the guy that delivers the mail, whose name is George.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like these are people that I care about. And I wasn't going to stand by and watch people that I care about be endangered. So I went to the media. And myself and one or two other attorneys were very vocal about the fact that the court was not protecting people, because the county courthouse is like, you know, trying to contact trace in that building is like trying to contact trace in a nightclub with the lights out with 300 people dancing. Right?
Wow.
I go in that building, I go from courtroom to courtroom to courtroom, then I go to other counties and go in courtrooms. You got people being brought over from the jail at that point, you know, standing next to you in court, and there's COVID in the jail, but nobody told you.
Yeah.
My involvement with the media didn't have much of a result because, as you know, when you deal with the media, the message gets filtered.
Yeah.
So I reached out to the court administrator. That's the person who runs all of the divisions. His name is Chris Connors. It so happens I worked in the district attorney's office with him, so I knew him. And I was like, listen, we need to sit down and talk. You
Yeah.
know, you need to temperature check. You need to have sign-in sheets in every room so we can figure out who is where. And I suggest that you put together some kind of advisory group to advise Judge Clark on
Yeah.
safety protocols because, you know, people are dying. And he took that to Judge Clark, and they created an advisory group. It was a member of the district attorney's office. It was a member of the public defender's office, Chris Connors himself, Ann Herrick Stock, who runs the City of Pittsburgh Municipal Courts, another defense attorney, and myself. The other defense attorney was Frankie Watt. I kind of dragged him into it. I don't know if he's happy or sad about that. But we basically spent months working over Zoom. You know, the procedures that we have in place now, like I'm doing hearings in Allegheny County Common Pleas Court on video, right? So I'm doing hearing my dogs running around in the background, barking and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
the way that we keep people safe is to keep them out of that building. And, you know, I spent months working on these issues. You know, they were originally going to make it that you could request a video hearing. And I said to them, you can't do that because people are just going to go with what they know. And then we're going to be where we are. You have to make it mandatory that they do their hearing on video. And if they want to request an in-person hearing, they got to explain to a judge why it's necessary. And again, similar to what I want to do in the criminal courts, these weren't overnight fixes. You know, we spent hours and hours and hours, but the
Yeah.
result was, you know, my friends that work in the county courthouse are safer today because of what I did. I didn't get
Yeah.
paid for it. And frankly, I haven't used it for political leverage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
again, for me, it wasn't just an issue. These are people I care about. And as I said, I think that we have, nothing's perfect. Every day people are getting sick in the court system right now.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can't be helped. Other than shutting it down totally, which a lot of people advocate for. I did at one point myself, but here's the problem. If I have a client who's sitting in a jail cell, they want their day in court.
Yeah.
Or let them
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, the court's not willing to do that in most cases. We got
Yeah.
some people out, not enough. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm proud of, that I stepped up and, you know, stood up not just for the lawyers, but for everybody that works in that building, and for the prisoners that get brought into that building, for the deputy sheriffs who have to work in that building, for the
Yeah.
judges themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know,
Wow.
it's interesting. My wife and I, when we started having kids, and I've got three. My oldest is 15, and I have 12-year-old twin, a teenage daughter, God help me, and I have twin 12-year-old boys. We made a very conscious decision that we wanted to raise our children a certain way, and that is that charity doesn't mean writing a check. Charity means community involvement. Charity means getting your hands dirty. Charity means helping out even when it's not convenient. You know,
Yeah.
the right thing is almost never the easy thing, but you do it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, I feel like that's a good example because I was trying to run a law firm. I had 3 kids learning from home.
Yeah.
Life is a zoo, but that was important enough that I pitched in. And
Yeah.
frankly, if more of us did that, did the kind of things that you do, Pittsburgh would be a hell of a lot nicer city.
Yeah. 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 We wouldn't be having studies from
Right.
Pitts, so and what it sounds like, what what you and your wife is, raising your children is, even when no one's looking,
Right.
it's still time to do the right thing, so yeah, wow, thank you so much for that. And a couple more questions. My next one to you is, George, why you? What's unique about you that for this Court of Common Pleas judicial seat?
That's a good question. There's, I think, 33 people made it on the ballot, a lot of candidates. And by the way, some very good candidates. It's interesting. Half of the people running are close friends of mine, right? People that think the way I do. We come from different places, but we're running for the same reasons. But why me is, first of all, the combination of my life experience, my professional experience. I've been doing this, people talk about criminal justice and criminal justice reform. People talk about how they want to be a judge and how awesome they are and all the things, that they will do. My record speaks for itself. I don't have to talk about the things I will do. I'll talk about the things I have done. I've been in the courtroom every day for over 20 years, fighting for people, trying to keep the system on its toes, keep it fair. When I have to, bucking the system. As you can tell, I don't hold back. Right? And even more so when I'm representing a client, because it's my ethical duty to get the best outcome for that person. And I will do anything I have to do to make that happen within the law, obviously. So when you combine those things with the will for change, because again, you can be progressive and you can be nice and you can be non-racist or anti-racist, but if you're not going to fight for change, then you're just a lump of coal. Right. I want to be one of the people that goes in there. There are judges on the bench right now that probably are continuing to do things the same way. But if they had other judges who were the same authority level as them, educating them and pushing them, they being good people go along. And that's what I want to be. Is I want to be one of those leaders, right? And some judges are laughing like, listen, that little punk, he's not even on the bench. He wants to be a leader. But listen, if that's what it takes, that's not arrogance. I don't think I'm the best guy in the world. I think I'm the guy who's willing to do it. Just like with that committee that I was on. If you're willing to fight, you have to, and I say this to people all the time, you should be asking judges, why are you running? What do you want to do as a judge? And what's your experience level that allows you to do those things? I think I check all of those boxes.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. Now, there may be people, George, that have questions for you that I did not ask, or they may want to elaborate on more of what we talked about, or they may even want to volunteer. How can someone get in touch with you?
Sure. The easiest way is probably through my website, and that's Heym, Heym, the number 4 judge, JUDGE.com. One word, Heym4judge.com. There's a contact form on there, a volunteer form on there. People can also look me up on Facebook. It's just /Heym4judge as well. I've got all kinds of information, more background info, a lot of information about the issues. We pretty much covered more than is on my website at this point. But people can, my phone number's on there. People can message me on Facebook. People can call me. People can fill out the contact form or email me. I will respond to community members because frankly, that's what this is all about. I'm not a big politically endorsed candidate. I'm not a big money candidate. I'm a get out there and talk to voters candidate. So any voter, like when I come to these, do these kind of things, I'll get emails. Hey, George, can you tell me more about this issue in the system? I'll give them a call or I'll shoot them an email and lay it out. So yes, I'm very accessible. People should not hesitate to reach out to me if they have questions, concerns. They want to tell me I'm terrible. That's cool too.
So, and before we end this morning, George, is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap it up?
Only this, and I'm kind of repeating something that I already said. This election might be one of the most, excluding the previous presidential election, obviously, one of the most important elections of our lifetime for Allegheny County citizens. It is something that people need to get involved with. They need to pick a candidate, back that candidate, talk about that candidate to your friends. You know, I went to an event at the Black House Art Gallery with Nikki Jo Dawson,
Yeah.
and she is amazing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
you wanted my painting. I won.
yes, you won the painting that I bid on. I wanted that painting. Yeah, we'll talk about that off when it's not being recorded. But I mean, my point is, we don't need people to stand on the sidelines.
Yeah.
We need people to get out there, even if it's just calling your friends. You know, hey, I saw this podcast and they talk about all these issues I never thought about.
Mm-hmm.
We should be doing our research. We change that conversation, and that's how we change the way we elect judges. We elect the right judges. That's the way that we change the system. If we stand on the sidelines, we end up in the same old place. And it's too important. Like I said, even if I don't win in this election, if I see that people are talking about judicial elections differently, I've accomplished part of my goal.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. George Heym running for the Court of Common Pleas Judge. You know, he gave us information. If you have any more questions or you would like to elaborate on anything that we talked about or volunteer, if you want to know more about George Heym, please check out his website and or get in touch with him. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming here at West End Power and educating us and absolutely giving us some gems.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to get the word out there. That's what it's all about.
Thank you. Thank you so much.